It's interesting, actually. I should start the software I wrote with my company a few days ago to have this interaction with the people here, because then I can control the lights, or you can control the lights here in my room. So just for short, this will be actually a short talk today, as Damir mentioned already. It is from the Build conference in Berlin. It was around about 40 minutes. I think it will take a little bit longer because I have more time to speak. But it is only the first part. As we talked, Dami and I, in Berlin, we found out it could be more interesting to have a second part, a more technical part about the custom binding thing. I will talk about later in this talk. So today it's only a theoretical thing, no source code except of some samples, but it's not a demo here or so. But I can share later a link or two links that you can take a look into some source code from mine. And probably it's better for you for understand what I'm talking about. First, I will start with the presentation, but I have to close the OBS here. So I use a new feature in PowerPoint. Later, I am in the PowerPoint presentation with my camera. So I have to close the OBS now. Don't wander here. Close it. Yes, sir. And then I will share my screen for the presentation. So I can see the list of the attendees here, participants, and you can see hopefully the Azure Meetup Frankfurt slide at first. And you can see my mouse as well. No. Okay. Let's start. Yes, it works. Great, great. Sometimes it's a little bit hard. And you can hear me, hopefully. First things first, Damir mentioned already that I have to introduce myself a little bit. I'm Yannick. I'm working for Media Lesson GmbH as software developer, cloud solutions architect, and consultant. This is this. I'm in the Azure cloud since 2008, and I'm software developer since 2000. .NET developer since 2000, but I write software since 1992 or so. I don't know. It's still a long time ago. Okay. Today, this talk is about a CQRS. It's a technique I use since 2010 or 11. It depends a little bit from the perspective. And it's a paradigm. It's not an architect from my perspective. It's an paradigm how to develop software and how to find the right way to create software and so on. But I will show you a little bit the way from what is the OOP part of that, what is a CQRS, and the way from this usual OOP to CQRS. And the most important thing here in this agenda is what kind of CQRS types I developed in the past and what I'm meant when I talk about, or what I mean when I talk about the CQRS 3.0. Okay. The first thing here is let's talk about OOP. This, as you can see here, is a very typical object. Oh, someone will share the screen on its iPad. And can you see my presentation? You can't see my presentation, or you can? No, you can't. Sorry.
Not anymore.
Now we can.
Now. Because of the
now
iPad thing. Okay, fine. Oh, that was strange. Okay. And it's fine, and you can see it in the full size, right? Hopefully. Okay. Back to the slide. And this, as you can see here, is a very typical car and an object which is described from a book. I copied this from a book. And you can see here, everything is very fine from the OOP perspective and from the books. But it's wrong. Because in the description of OOP, you can read, you have an object, and this object has some methods, and this methods change the status of the object. Here, in this case, it rotates or move or have something in the engine and so on. Actually, it's fine, but it's not really, really fine. OOP is a little bit more than only create a car or develop a class, make some objects from this class and use it in your source code. OOP is a little bit more. OOP have a lot of definitions, and very, very much from these definitions are not used from the software developers. As I said, I'm a software developer since a long time. And when I see the source code from different people, also from my time, from my older time, I see many failures or bad source code also. You know what I mean. And this is because of the books. I think it's from the books, because in the books you have some samples, and the most of the software developers takes the samples and develop the code in the same way. But it's not really the right way. Here you can see this car, but this car is not well formed. Actually, you should take this way. Maybe I can put here a pen, highlighter, laser pointer. This is nice. Yes. Here is the car again. This is the same thing, but this car takes or uses now two different objects. Here we have separate the objects. It's a separation of concern also. This car makes actually the same thing as this car too, but it's more clear. And this is what I found out as I started with CQRS. Everything when I define or design software, it's a more clear way than the time before. Yeah. Okay. This is a car. Nice car. But the most of us are not game developer or car developer or something like that. We are creating business software, and the business software is mostly data-driven. So I have a sample from a data-driven object or view, master data management class. Probably you have developed this kind of class already, as I did it very often, and I did it very wrong in the past, hopefully only in the past. What is the problem of this object here? It looks very nice. It looks very familiar. It is correct. But from an OOP definition, an object have to do only one thing. Remember, you have the car, and this car have did many things, move and rotate and have this engine thing. An object have to do only one thing. This is a definition of OOP. So in this object here, there is actually two things. It reads data and it writes data. So from the design part or from the definition part, actually we have to split up this object, master data management. This is the time that CQS came in. CQS is defined from someone from French, I have forgotten the name, and he had this idea, take the objects you have and split it into the responsibilities or from your objects. In this case here, the master data management is split up now in two different classes, the master data writer and the master data reader, which is very fine now from the OOP perspective. This is what I mean. But it is wrong too. Actually, it looks very fine. It is fine, but it isn't fine. Because I can see here that the data writer makes two actions or have two responsibilities again. When I save this product here, I put the product in, I get an ID back. I saw this in very many cases in so many source codes or in so many solutions. I saw that you have this save something, save entity, and you get back this ID because the ID is created by the database, for example also. And later you use this ID in your next steps in your process also. This is wrong. Why? It is save and read again. The read data is on this side. It's in a different class. It's not in the writer class. It has to be. It hasn't to be. So that's right. Sorry. Yeah. So and because of this reason, I think this is.
Wow.
Ja, mach mal das Mikrofon aus. Happen. Because of this problem, a good friend of the company, not company, of the community, invented more or less the CQRS pattern. CQRS have this one approach to split all the read and write parts into very different, let's call it domains, technical domain or actually a business domain. Let me describe it. By the way, the guy who invented this CQRS is Greg Young, and it was in 2000, around about 8 or so. And he took this idea from CQRS that he has commands and queries and segregation. What is the meaning of CQRS? And he said, it's better to separate it a little bit more. Keep your software so clear that you have only one part for write data and read data. Very typical business application has this parts write and read, and only 20% is writing data and 80% of this business application is reading data. But in the most cases, you and I used it in the past. I developed databases, or I took a database, one database for write and read data, which is a problem. The problem here is always I create a data model, a structure which is optimized for read and write in the same way. So it is not the best for read and it's not the best for write. And this is one of the reasons to split this responsibilities of your business application into different parts. But how? Greg Young said, you have an UI. You have these two parts, and this UI sends a command. This is the C of the CQRS. This command will be sent to a domain. This domain changes the status and writes the data as a kind of event in an event store. What is an event store? An event store is nothing else like you can take it as a text file or so. It's an append-only storage. Take some data, put it or append it in a list, in a very long list. And what is an event? An event is a description what kind of changes has happened in the domain. That's it. Probably we'll have later in a different meetup. We're talking more about event store or events. Okay. After that write part, the same event was sent to an event handler. This event handler has a lot of knowledge about the domain, the business domain, what will happen when this data came in, what kind of data I have to change then. And this change will happen in a second database, the read model database. This event store takes the event, takes the data, knows, I have to change for example, the last name from someone, takes the data from the read model and changes here. Okay, or different event is put something into a basket. So the event handler knows there's a product. I take this product here in the basket for this user, for example. Okay. And in front of this read model, we have a query handler. This is the queue from CQ. The UI now can take or send up a query to the query handler. The query handler reads the data from this read model and sends back to the UI. Fine so far. R and S means responsibilities. It's write and read, and it is completely separated. So now we have the 4 letters: command, query, responsibilities, segregation. The most important or interesting part from this picture, actually the picture from Greg Young was much more complicated than this here. This is the very simple part. He has a lot of services here and facades and message buses and so on. This is the simple part here, or a simple way. Was that he wrote here or made this name in called domain. I will switch to the next slide. I'm domain-driven designer, actually. I love it. I love to design software in a domain-driven way. And as Greg described, this part here is a domain, and in this domain you can change the business stuff. I was very happy, all of us from the community was very happy that he made a note that we have an architecture, a software architecture now, which describes here is the business domain. And this is the only part of the business domain. Anything else is, no, there's nothing. It's only on this part. Here is the domain. And this picture here is only for describing what he meant. And it is what we mean when we're talking about domain-driven design. We have a domain, we have a business domain, we have a business, and in this business we have a lot of context and we have aggregates. It's a different talk to talk about this, all of these parts, but from our perspective as domain-driven designer, we found out that not we found out, but Greg gives us a tool, a technical tool to put all these ideas from domain-driven design into one single architecture, actually. It's not an architecture as CQRS, it's different, but it's not necessary to talk about this now. I will go back to this picture here. And now from this domain, any object or component in this domain sends status changes in kind of the events to this event store and to the event handler now. So,
Yanni,
yeah.
May I just ask a question?
Yes.
Because we do not see right now many faces. Maybe people are sleeping, maybe people are losing people and so on, because this is a highly complex topic. Maybe it would be great if you could provide some example of that. What is a domain in the previous picture? Or maybe if you are on that one, to just make a short clarification, or what is the difference between aggregate, context, and domain, so that we don't lose people there.
Yeah. Wait, I will make some notes for that because of the words.
I don't want now that because this will be totally different talk, yeah. But if we introduce it as a domain,
definitely.
In my experience, many, especially younger developers, are not really sure when you say, hey, there is a domain, and when you have two different domains, you need adapters, something like what does this all mean, yeah, and why it is here.
Yeah. Please help me. Immobilienverwaltung.
So we have also one question here now, which might be Please, Jim.
Yeah, Jim? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I think the CQRS is very important for Frankfurt. I say this so that people stop going away, because it's a transaction-based architecture. I mean, most of the relational database, which is one database, doing both read and write, is just not able to do what CQRS, the separation of read and write into two different databases, and this allows transaction-based database, which is critical for fintech and bank and all this migration.
Yes. Actually, this is the you know what is in Ledger? Yes, you know, right? Which is from the financial part from the finance, and the event store in this case is actually Ledger. Actually, it is. You have only this write data something into this database and never change it. And you're right. You're completely right. It's for the financial parts, or for everybody who likes to use this blockchain thing. You can take this CQRS. It's actually the same. It's not the same. Sorry, it's much simpler. But you can use it for this approaches. If someone talked to you and said, "Yeah, I need a blockchain solution," yeah, take the CQRS. It's easier. Jim has a question again, or is it the same question still?
No, Jim, please just take away your hand. Thank you, Jim.
Yes. Back to this picture here, domain, context, and what is an aggregate. I have a sample, and this sample is actually very simple, but I had it only in German, so I had to search for the real or correct English words. So a domain is a business thing. Everybody from us who is writing software or designs software or works in a software department writes software for a specific business. So this is the domain, the business domain. For example, the real estate. Real estate is a huge domain. I work for a company in real estate, and I found out it's so many parts in there, it's so many departments there, so that we had to split it into context. So I talk about domain as a real estate thing. It's the big thing. We have some contexts there. We have rent, we have housekeeping, we have what else? A construction was something in this. We have different more. And one, as I said, one context, rent, has a few aggregates. For example, a rent contract. The contract you make with your people who live in the apartments, and this contract is an aggregate. This aggregate means this contract, you have a few data, first name, last name, you have an address, you have some prices there, you have the size of the flat, you have some more information on that. This is an aggregate. It collects data from different contexts, for example, and shows this on this aggregate. It aggregates data. So it is a very complex topic here, and in regarding to the CQRS, it was very interesting for us that we was able to design our business context stuff and aggregates and all these fancy things into an architecture. Let's call it architecture. I hope this sample it's good enough. The domain is real estate. One of the contexts is, for example, rent or apartment renting thing. No, and one of the aggregates in this context, for example, is the contract for the renter. Hopefully, it helps a little bit. Okay. Now, the very most important part here is the variants of the CQRS. As I started as software developer, no, as I started as a CQRSler, I'm I mean, someone who heard the first time from CQRS, I took the solution from Greg Young, his first solution. I took this, and he is a .NET developer, so he wrote all the source code in C#. It's very nice to read it, and it was very complicated. Yes, in the first move or on the first look on the system. But after a while, it was very simple. It feels much simpler in development. Let me show you the first version of that. Any CQRS system have the same UI? Actually, basically not. Actually not. So, but I will just describe it here only without an UI. And this part, you should think about this picture before this one. We have this command here, and in front of this arrow, we have the command handler. The command handler is the entry point for this domain thing. Yeah. So this is the command handler here. This command handler is connected to the event store and knows any aggregate here. Aggregate, remember, it's, for example, a contract. This aggregate is inherited from a type called aggregate root. It's a technical solution. You can find it in this CQRS version 1. In so many cases, you will see this kind of aggregate root class everywhere. And this aggregate root class have an apply method. This apply method takes a domain event. Remember, this domain event is from here. This one, an event, takes this event and applies this on the aggregate root or applies on actually on this aggregate. How? The command handler takes all the events from the event store, read these events, put this in a command handler, and moves this into the aggregate. Then the aggregate takes this apply method. It's a kind of private class, a private method, and processes all these events and takes the data from the event to recreate or restore or respawn this aggregate. We call it respawn because it sounds a little bit nicer. I have this link here. Can I click this link here? No, I can't. I have this. Click here. It's not possible at the moment. I will share this link later in the chat. Yeah, this is sample code then from my solution as I wrote the first time this CQRS in the version 1 with this apply method. The problem of this apply method was it's a very complicated, how call it, interface way, how to find the right method to change the properties from the aggregate and so on. It's a very technical thing. This you can see this in the sample here later. And so I thought it could be better. From my perspective, I think it should be better. And after a while, we in the community find out we have a better way. Probably you know something about the C#, and in the time as the link came into the .NET framework, we removed all these apply methods and goes the way, or we changed the way to the CQRS version 2. We are reading the data from the stream. Let me explain this. The command handler takes all the events here. Again, it's the same way from the event store. It takes the data, moves all the events sorted by date and time, into the aggregate, but the aggregate don't apply all these events. It stores the events in itself in the memory. And always when we need data from this aggregate, we search or filter all these events here in a specific way. Here is an example. Again, probably it's a good idea to open this link. Anyway, can I open this here from the presentation? Wait a moment. That should be possible. This one here. Yeah. I can open it. I can open it. So the first things here. Yeah, it works. It works. So it's something, yeah. More source code. You can read it, right? This is very old source code from me a long time ago. And this is one of this apply method. Apply event to internal state. I call it. This is a private method. I take this domain event, I find out this, what is the type of this event. I'm going to the I need the method, the handler method for this event by name in this case. Here now I have the method for that. I'm looking for the aggregate root type, get the method. You see this as reflection here. And now I have the method here. And after the method, I can invoke, if everything is fine, I invoke this with the domain event. Why should I do this? To set the properties from the aggregate. Yeah, to set the properties from the aggregate, because you need the properties, the new data from your aggregate. Okay, and this is the way of apply. The second way, I will click here on the second part. Yes, that works too. So the second part is working with the stream. I have some data in my stream, and yes, aggregate do something. It's a do something method, do something here, and I can take, for example, I have this events, my events as object list of events. I'm looking in this event list of a specific type, something happened event, okay, and I count this events. So now I have this something happened event after this of type. You know, this is from the link thing. Or I can count 2. I can, that's a count 2. I have only count methods here or samples. Then I have more here. It's also a very old source code here. Can I see this here? Aggregate should be, this is internal should be of type this one. It's an exception thing here. Yeah, but in this source code, I can share the links here now. Copy chat. So you can take a look in my old, very old samples and the versions. This is the version 1 and this is the second version. So fine so far. Back to the presentation. Now, did we have some questions? Oh no, I heard something here. Okay, this is we call it in the community the CQRS 2.0 version is, we call it working with the stream. Everything we have is, all information we need is in the stream. And the command handler only selects the events which is linked, or it's part of this only aggregate. Any aggregate has an ID and this ID is stored in this event too. So that we have only the events from this one aggregate. Fine so far. But all of these solutions is designed to run on a classic client-server system. And as I started in 2016 to enter the world of serverless things and architectures and serverless resources in the cloud, I thought I have to change the CQRS pattern in a better way, in a serverless way. So, and this is what we're talking about, or I talk about here, the CQRS version 3. We have this UI again. Yes, the camera is on. This UI sends a command to a message service bus. Sorry, not a message bus anymore, which actually is, as I said already, it's the right solution for a CQRS pattern from Greg Young. He said you have to split or separate all these resources by messaging. So the UI sends the command into a service bus. The service bus, or on the service bus, we have a function which has a service bus binding or listener and gets this one command in a function. I call it context now. Remember on this picture from domain and context and aggregate. And I take this function as context. Okay. This context now works with this command, changes something, and this is the magic here, the big magic, a custom binding called a domain event stream. This is behind this link too. I will share this link also later in this chat. All the magic is happening here. And this will be the next talk. When I talk about this custom binding, what is it? This will be very, very technical then later. Okay, this context takes this command, makes something changes, and send the data back through this custom binding to the database. Again, as event to, for example, in Cosmos DB, you can put in SQL Server as well. I've created a new custom binding, or I made some changes on the custom binding here, so you can decide will you have a Cosmos DB or a Cosmos DB. So then the same custom binding sends the same event from this database or from the Cosmos DB to the next message bus, service bus, sorry. And this, surprise, surprise, the next function will triggered by this event or by this service bus, and it's the event handler. Again, remember on the picture from CQRS what Greg Young described, you have this event handler part, and this event handler now stores data again in a Cosmos DB, or you can take a database you like. And now we have the query handler here. This query handler now is connected to this database, and you have the query here again to this query handler as function again. So the full picture here is now technical, but actually it's the same picture from the CQRS description later in this talk from Greg Young. So actually, I would say, 40 minutes, as I said, a little bit longer. This is actually the last part of the talk, because the most interesting part is here in the top, the custom binding. I will show you this custom binding now in source code. I have to go here again, this one. And here you will find this. Copy. Yes, this one. And this is the new part from my solution. But what I've missed here is no bicep stuff or so. I will show you a little. No, it's not the best idea, but the interesting part is this one here. In my Azure function, I have a new attribute, a new binding. It's a domain event stream. This domain event stream takes actually two parameters, the context name, for example, I don't know, sales or something like that. Or from the residential thing here, from the real estate construction was something, or the English words. Sometimes I have problems to find the right words. Facility management. So, and here the entity name. It could be employee or basket if you have an order system. Also, you can any kind of entity, because you have so many data-driven applications. You know what an entity is. So this is the part here. Put the entity name here in, and after that you have in your function a domain event stream. That's it. This domain event stream is connected to the database. Now, wait, I'll move this a bit. It's connected to this database, for example, Cosmos DB. And in the moment that you need data from the database, the custom binding reads the data, and the select or the filter is more or less in this context name and in this entity name. Actually, I have a third parameter here. It's the entity ID, so I can filter more the data. So now you can use this event stream object here. For example, here is an event stream. I put some data on this with the append method. I have here a domain event instance, which is inherited from the type domain event. That's it. And put an entity ID here in the end, if it's necessary. If you like to read the data later on this event, on the entity ID. Or you can read, is reading data here in this list? Yes, I think so it is. So append here, as you can see here, order placed something, it's an event. It's inherited from domain event. Then, as I changed that, I can put here in the SQL Server. Is it changed? Yes. You need a database then. If you have a SQL Server, create a specific database, and this database needs these fields to store the data. Instead of using Cosmos DB, you can take this SQL Server. So then use the domain event stream. In the past, we have learned the apply method is very strange to use it, and reading from stream is much better. So why shouldn't use the stream technique again in the context here in this context function? So, but why should I create a new thing to read the data? I can read the stuff from my domain event stream too. So hopefully the documentation will open. Yes, oh, it works. So I have my domain event stream now here. Remember, this domain event stream is actually the same thing which we had here in, which I had here in my function, marked with this attribute. Hey, hello. Marked with this attribute, and when I use this event stream, I have it, or when the function is spawned, I get this event stream as an object, which is connected then to the database, and so on. Okay, here. Now I have my domain event stream, call it a little bit different. I have these events. These events are actually, these are the events which we need to work with in this moment. It's filtered by the context, by the entity name or entity ID, and so on. Okay, now I have the list of my events here. And on this event, I can get a specific type of my event, get all of this type of event. Fine. And then when I have this type of event, I can take some data from that. By the way, all these events here are sorted by date and time again. So I have a stream, event stream, and I can, oh, you can't see me because I have camera here on, and it stops the camera. PowerPoint stops the camera when it's not in the focus. So when I put this in the focus, you can't see the source code, but you can see me. Oh, okay, I do change it here. Okay, and something else. So I have all these events from the specific type, and I can read the data from that. And if the last change of something in this event, is it the last change? I take the last event from this, fine. Or I can take any event of this specific type, which have a specific where clause here. Nice, some events. Or I can ask the events get from a specific time type. So this is the question: is any something here? This is I get everything from this. Oh, it reads a little bit strange. Okay, maybe I will change something later in this API, or read the first event which have a specific where clause here, or have have specific data in it. So, or take the last one, and so on and so on. The only one, this is the single thing, but it's safe single thing here. Yes, I can ask something here. I've happened earlier than this event of type 1 happened earlier than event type 2, and so on. And this is possible because of the path that I've learned how to deal with the stream. So I've created an API on this specific custom binding object thing. And yeah, actually this should be, should be the part of one of the next talk. As I said, it's the shorter version of the talk here, and it's the first time that I talk this in English. So then move to the next slide. I like this picture. I would say the CQRS 3.0, it's not really necessary to do this, but it is, from my perspective, more effective. It is serverless, it's cloud driven. And since I use this, I've developed this all in 2 years ago, roundabout. I use it now in actually any kind of project. And it's so simple. It's much simpler than the ways before, or than the solutions before. So in this, I would say thank you. You can contact me on Twitter with Yannick F here, or write me a message, an email. As I said, I'm cloud architect, and so on. I have to change now to OBS again to start the camera. No, it doesn't work because I have to close the presentation first. Oh, I don't know. No. Defocus. The camera isn't working. Oh, unshare. Stop. I don't know. OBS will not work anymore. Like this. Close this one. In a few seconds, hopefully I'm back. Yes, I'm back here. My camera works now. So it was a little bit short, I know, but it was the first part. As I said, it's the first part, and the second part will be more technical when I talk about the custom binding. Hopefully we'll find an appointment, and later on, maybe this year or so. Damir, what do you think?
I guess later this year.
Yeah, later.
If not on the beginning of the next one, but
or that. Yes.
Maybe we can discuss.
And hopefully it wasn't that too confusing, because this CQRS, it's so deep in my mind already that I actually don't know anymore where is the hard point. Yeah, so it helps me to get a feedback here. Where is the biggest problem and so on? Because for me, it's very normal in this, now in this time.
Maybe we can start asking questions.
Yes. Oh, it's 18.
Please, guys, so it's very theoretical content. I cannot believe there are no questions, but maybe I can start with that to introduce a discussion. What is, in your opinion, the most important thing, why and when we should use CQRS?
This is a very typical question. Actually, for any kind of business software you write, and which has long-running processes. I don't talk about CPU processes. I talk about business processes in this case. For example, this contract management. Yeah, you have a contract. You sign the contract. You live in a flat, for example, for 10 years. Or it's a long-running process, and then CQRS is very, very. It's one of the best solution actually from my perspective, because you have these events. As long as you don't delete all these events from the event store, you can find, you have all the reasons why the status of the data is as it is.
Maybe to define it more precisely, when you say long running, do you mean something what takes days, years, or it is something what might also take just a few seconds? It's not like, hey, give me your telephone number, request response, and you get it. Long running is something I tell you, hey, save this telephone number in database, and that can take maybe a minute, maybe a year. Is that what you're talking about?
It's more the longer time actually. But if we talk about CQRS, the first implementations are on Twitter and Facebook. Is this fast process or long-running process? We don't know actually. It's a messaging system, but for the data and for the reports later, which is the very long-running process, actually we will know the data over the year or over the years. Yeah, then it's a long-running process. You can use it for the short time things. But later, if you want to understand the data, you will create some reports for the past, in the past. You have long-running processes suddenly. Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you. I'm just waiting if there are some more questions, because around that we can ask many questions. And also one interesting thing in this, what you have presented now, you have two handlers. So one is for writing and one is for reading. And now it would be maybe good to explain, okay, that's one for writing because it is a reasonable one, because when you write something in a database, it might be that this is a very complex, as you say, long-running process. Writing might be writing in 10 databases after that, like I'm purchasing the order at Amazon shop portal, and if I would be developer of that, I will write the event. Some event handler will wait on it and do something. From our perspective, it's just event. That's fine. So how about reading event handler? What is the purpose of that one? Is it easier to just ask database, hey, give me a telephone number and your address, and why do I need to send a message for that, and the message arrives event handler and then I get something? Could you maybe elaborate a little bit more of this?
You mean you're talking about the data structure or so?
No, I mean you had two handlers somewhere. One was inserting this and writing, and one was read or something like that.
Yes, this is the query part. Reading is the query part. You have this event handler, and this event handler changes the data in the read model database, and in front of this database, or it's wrapped within facade, within service, and you use this service to read the data or get the data from this database. The important part here from the read model database is that the data are not stored in the normalized way. If you know this RDBMS topic, you have normalized data here. You don't put the data in the normalized way, because reading the data from a normalized database is very slow. And to get the data in a very fast way, you have to denormalize everything. take the UI, take the data from the UI, and actually put the data from your UI into the database. Very, very clear, very streamlined, and so that you have only on your query part, select all the data from this table. That's it.
Okay,
You don't
so that
need
means
any kind of join. You shouldn't take any kind of join and so on. And this is the responsibility of the event handler, that the event handler puts the data in this very denormalized way.
so that means this is kind of async read, not a sync read.
It is always an async read, yes.
So that means it can also be longer running. So if I say, hey, give me a telephone number,
No.
it might take
No. In this case, no. Then you have done very normal reading, but you have a gap between the command and the read part. If you send the command, it takes a bit longer time to get the data in the database.
So command, when you say command, you might write command.
Yes, this is the right command, the right part. No, in many cases, you have an application. You send the command. You say, hey, change your status into a different thing. So this is write something. And if you want to read the data, then later, actually, the most developers try to read the data in the same moment. It takes a bit longer than in the usual way that you have write the data and read it on the same way, actually, or on the same wire.
So we have a thank you, Yannick. We have some question. The first one, Jim, we will come back to you. We are just reading the feed right now. Hi, Yannick, is it possible that you do some session about DDD? Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, we will do a session about DDD.
I can.
In 5 years and something like that. No, I'm just joking. We can do it.
I have a recommendation actually for this part. I have a conference, or we are 3 people, and we organize a conference here in Berlin called Kandinsky with 3 Ds, of course. And this is a DDD conference, and yeah, it's in October, end of October and beginning of November, 2 days and 1 day open space. Actually, if you want, you can join us. It's in Berlin. I can enter the name here called sorry. So you can take a look there. It's one of that. But of course, I can have a DDD session here in a meetup as well. This is
yes, maybe we can set up a meetup to join directly to your conference and share it.
Yeah, why
we can
not?
Also do that. But let's talk about. Let's take this offline. Thank you.
Something different.
Thank you for that. Daniel is asking an interesting question. He is writing science. We already have data optimized for reading, as you mentioned in the beginning of the session. In the read database dedicated for reading of the data, everything is normalized or whatever is optimized for fast read. Yeah. So how do we use, and maybe why do we use data stored in event store, right, DB?
The question is here.
It's a last question in it.
Yeah. This is you have an existing application, right? And you will change to a event-driven application or so.
Maybe
no, I mean I can also ask it live. Yeah,
yes.
Simpler maybe. Yeah. So I was asking. We have 2 databases. One write database where we put all these events, event store, and then we have the read database where we read.
Yeah. Okay.
The question is actually very simple. Why do we need the write database?
The right thing. We call it the source of truth. Yes. The right part is, as we call it, the source of truth. That means always when I take this event stream for a specific aggregate or context or something like that, I will know why the data in the read part has this, let's call it design, has this kind of design. Why are the data in the read part? What is the reason for that? For example, if you change your last name, you can change your last name actually only when you get married.
Yeah.
Or if you try to be someone else, you can change your name. But you have some reasons in the law that you can't change your last name, because if you are already married, you can't marry again and change your last name. So this is you have to take in the stream, in this read part stream here. You can take a look into the past. You can make some logical decisions. It's one of the examples. I have much more reasons in different applications that I take a look in the past, what has happened in the past. So it is also very necessary to have all this event on the read on the right part to make some reports. Someone tried to understand why the data are in this way, and we need more reports. And yes, we have only the data from now, not from the past. We can't create reports from now, but we want to have it in the past, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if you have this event store in this case, all these events, you have the data from the past, and you can create actually any kind of report then from the beginning of this event store.
Yeah, so basically for different use cases that we couldn't foresee in the beginning. So, okay, thank you very much.
This is exactly, thank you for answering. This is exactly, Danny. We have today, CQRS is older than Azure and cloud. Yeah. And what we have today, this demand for CQRS very often to split this write and read, because that was a good example when Jan introduced, say, hey, you are doing some reporting and so on. And to prepare this report, you will create just table which has a data which you just go select star from something, from date to date, and you just get the data on the screen, and that's what you want. But to prepare this data, you need to use this writing event handler, which might calculate this a day. You want to split that. And there is also another thing. Sometimes if you have a lot of reads, you have possibility in Azure to scale reads on different server on, let's say, 3 servers in cluster. And writes might work on a single one or 100 of them. So you have a lot of options to do that without digging too deep in this theory. It's just good to split this thing. But don't understand us wrong. Don't start tomorrow a new project and just do CQRS because it's cool. It is CQRS. Make complex things. So I personally, I don't like to support it. 2 years after we did CQRS, I don't want to see it. But it is a good thing, as Jan said. Once you have events, you can repeat these events and restore your data to any point of time. So if you have such scenarios, not for backup, backups can be do easier way in Azure today. But if you have that something to jump on some specific point of time, that's SQL is working that way, by the way. If you roll back to things and so on, and that's how it works. So we have more questions. The next one would be, let's say, Powell.
First was Jim.
Yeah, hi. I have a bit of question from personal experience. I worked with a project with CQRS for quite some time. So we had a major issue that over the time our application had major development, our data structure changed significantly, and that led obviously to the change of events format. So
event versioning, yes.
Yeah, eventually we had to get into.
I love it very much.
But don't expect now a silver bullet as a solution. That's a problem with everything what is long running.
So eventually we had multiple events versions, and for each event version we had to write a different handler, and that resulted in a lot of code duplication and a lot of problems. And for me, that's basically the primary and major drawback of CQRS, because I don't understand how to effectively handle the big changes. So my question was, how do you do it as an expert?
The best answer is, in any case, it depends. Yes, I know this problem, and we wrote a few years ago a specific versioning engine, more or less, and we marked all the events with interfaces. What language you use? What program language you use?
C#.
C#, of course. Okay. In this case, we marked all these events with interfaces and versioning interfaces, more or less. Yes, so that this event engine yeah, took a look. Oh, this is this kind of event. In the past, this was all these events. We take this all, and then we have to enter this property now. We have to change this property now, and so on. It was a huge machine, but it worked very well for around about 10 years. So it's one of the solutions. The second part is if you have to change your events, then the model was not really the best. In other cases, yes, you can take this way as you choose already. You have this event handler, you have different event, for example, within V1, V2, and so on, in the end, in the name or so. Actually, you can take this, okay, or sometimes it's also a good solution, but it could be a little bit strange in the first moment. You take it, yeah, you make a kind of snapshot. You have a finalized event. Till this moment, this event is fine. From this moment, the next event is the same event changed by the data, but this is your you have one event in between these two different between these events. You say this is fine. This is the end of this time from this event, and you take now the next one. And this describes only this is the older version, this is the next version, and then you can use it on the same API. Actually, you can change the event handler in any case. You don't have to deal with the old event now because you don't need it in the event handler. You don't need this old event anymore. You can take always the new event, except if you have this application or or the system roll out for different customers, and the one customer takes the old events and the next customer takes the next events, and so then you have to version more it on the CI/CD pipeline. I think
maybe I can tell you some internal story by Microsoft. It was back to year, I don't know, 2000, maybe 7, 8, 9. If somebody of you in the call remember Workflow Foundation.
Oh, yes.
Workflow Foundation was really still really cool stuff there. And the Workflow Foundation is stateful, let's say, service. It's long running, exactly all this what Jan introduced. And at that in that context, we had a problem internally how to handle running workflows persisted in the store when the new version of workflow is deployed. It's exactly the same problem. It's event workflow is a little bit more complex, but the same problem. And I was those days MVP also on the BizTalk server. So we had the same problem, orchestration and so on. And Microsoft did the tools which never publicly have been published, which it's a mapping tool. You say I left first version and not the second version, and then you map that. And this property was called property A1, now it's called property B2. And when that happened, they deploy something and so on. And it was so complicated that we at the end decide, hey, actually the solution is kind of pragmatic and simple. What we do today, the new version of event handler, when you deploy new event and you have millions of old events, version 1, and then you are getting more and more events of version 2. You have to, with the new version of event 2, you always have to deploy a piece of code, which is firing event, and you need to deploy the piece of code which is receiving that event. And this second version of receiver must always handle all existing versions of events. So now you can have in a year 10 different versions because just people don't read it, yeah? So once they read completely, then you can just deploy the version which is capable of reading of the current version, like version V5, yeah? Because 1, 2, 3, 4 do not exist anymore in the store, and that's it. No tooling, no anything. And this is just something, it is relatively easy to handle. So that's how we do it today. It's always kind of little mess, yeah, but you always have in software some kind of mess. As long as it's a controlled one and it's in a roadmap, it's not a bad thing. Yeah. Hope this helps you. But thank you for question. That's really everything what is long running has a state and has this problem.
And this question is also a very typical question we have 3 questions regarding to this CQRS pattern or talk in all event versioning, eventual consistency, performance actually, and when should I use this CQRS? So I have 4
Well, let's
questions.
stop talking about
Yes.
problems. No problems.
No,
Everything is
it's
fine.
not a problem.
I
I have to a little bit to hurry up.
Jim has one more question.
Yes.
I'm just curious, how do you combine like Kubernetes and your CQRS? Do you do something like that? I cannot find much documentation on that.
Yes, because of reasons.
Okay.
Not nobody, but the most people from the CQRS community don't like to use Kubernetes for this. We don't need it.
But-
and in the serverless way, you don't need it in no way.
No, actually, when you design a good one, CQRS or blah, blah, you don't care about infrastructure. It can run whenever, wherever. So there is no really, shouldn't be a relation there. If you have somebody is doing something wrong, for sure.
So the idea is to implement a good design, domain design pattern so that the context is well isolated with single responsibility.
Yes.
And then let the infrastructure take care of automatic scaling.
Exactly. It will run on Linux,
the key is
on
the
Windows,
design.
and Blazor, and Angular, everything.
And it will work. I've tried it accidentally. The serverless thing didn't broke. I wasn't able to broke all this systems. Not yet. I wasn't able. No. And I have a lot of events and a lot of data and so on, but nothing. It works. It works. I don't need this Kubernetes thing. Maybe Docker, of course, yes, but I don't need the Kubernetes thing.
As an interesting relation to that, take a look on Azure Function Binding for Event Hub and IoT Hub, which is actually the same one. And there are millions and billions of events consumed there. And I wish you a lot of fun if you try to do it on your own by using.
As I told you, Damir, no? 3.1 billion events.
Yeah.
Per day or so, per hour. I don't know. Who cares? It works.
Jan, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
See you next time. We stay in touch. Wish you a nice evening. And thank you so much, everybody who joined us, our event today. And see you soon with the next interesting topic.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.